Nintendo are no strangers to releasing unusual accessories for their consoles. The Switch's Ring-Con and the Game Boy camera are two such good examples. But who'd have thought that they'd release a keyboard for their DS? But of course they had a reason for this. Pokémon Typing Adventure, a Pokémon spin-off game designed to teach the player how to touch type. It came bundled with the keyboard, and it is the only DS title that supports it. So let's take a look at this package as a whole and see what it's all about. Hello fellow gamers, and let's learn to type! With Pokémon. So, learning with Pokémon Typing Adventure. It was released in Japan 10 years ago in 2011, and it came out in Europe and Australia in the following year. Now, funnily enough actually, it came out after the release of the 3DS, which led to them having to mention that it's compatible with it on the back of the box. Now, it came out in all these different countries, but it never hit the shores of the States. I'm not sure why. Maybe Nintendo didn't want Americans to learn to type, who knows? Now, I didn't know about this game until I spotted it in my local game store back in April of 2018. I thought it was rather unique for the DS, and hey, it was only 20 quid, so I thought, meh, screw it. It's a good thing too, because these things often go for twice that today. And you know what? After trying it out, I was rather surprised at how well it was all put together. Now, over here in the UK, Pokémon Typing Adventure was only sold in this big box bundle. It included the game, the keyboard, and a stand. Hold up. A stand? What the frick? Actually, the stand is there for your DS to prop it up while you play. It's not strictly necessary to use though, really, since the DS's top screen can be adjusted to fit your needs. The game itself is included in its own typical DS box, with the inclusion of the usual instruction manuals and advertising blurb. There's even a separate instruction manual for the keyboard itself, showing you the ins and outs of it and how to pair it up with your DS. But the really special inclusion here is, of course, the keyboard itself. The one I have here, it has a typical QWERTY key layout, and it's got quite a bit of a slim form factor. It's almost like the Nintendo equivalent of the Apple keyboard. All of the keys have these soft rounded edges around them, and each key is very gently concaved. This shape makes it ever so slightly easier for your fingers to rest on the keys. The keyboard itself will run on two AA batteries, and there's a very clear on-off switch located in the top right hand corner. Like most other keyboards, there are bumps on the F and J keys to indicate where you should be resting your index fingers in their natural resting position. And they were even kind enough to include the Euro as well, even though I don't think it's ever been used in game. Now, I mentioned earlier that this was never officially released in the States. It was brought out in many different countries, including the UK, I'm happy to say, and some even have slightly different keyboard layouts to meet the regions, but never ever in the States. So why, Nintendo, did you give us a keyboard with an American layout? Ugh. Anyone in the UK will be able to notice straight away that this is not the layout that we're used to here. There are several subtle differences which can throw a spanner in the works for us. It really doesn't make any sense unless they intended to release it over there in the States. But, oh well, it's done now anyway. Now, there is one unique addition to this keyboard that you're not going to find on a typical UK or even a US keyboard, is the inclusion of this home key. It's located around about the same area you would expect to find like the Windows key on a Windows keyboard or the Command key on a Mac keyboard. Now, this key, it doesn't really do much in the game though. Rather, it just takes you to your home space where you can customize your on-screen keyboard. But with all this talk about the keyboard, at this point you might be asking, well, how does it even connect to the DS? It's clearly wireless, but the DS itself only had Wi-Fi, didn't have Bluetooth, for example. Well, yes, you're absolutely right, the DS doesn't have Bluetooth. But the keyboard itself does use Bluetooth. The Pokémon Typing Adventure card has a Bluetooth module installed within it, so the keyboard can connect to it. And if you don't believe me that this is a Bluetooth keyboard, you can go ahead and just connect it up to your computer if you wanted to. In fact, I wrote up many of my notes for this video using this keyboard on my computer. And all in all, it's pretty damn responsive and surprisingly comfortable to use. Though I have to mention, and I don't know if this is the case with other Bluetooth keyboards, this one only recognises 4 keys at a time. If you wanted to press 5 keys at once, one of them isn't going to be picked up. Though really, in normal everyday typing, you're not going to be using more than 2 keys at once anyway, so that's fair enough. Although if you were to try and use this keyboard on your computer whilst playing a PC video game, those of you who are, rather vigorous with the keys may notice a bit of a limitation. But nonetheless, it's definitely not one of the worst wireless keyboards that I've ever used. In fact, it's surprisingly comfortable for what it's meant to be. Which is a good thing, as it's meant to be the primary input for the packing game. Learn with Pokémon Typing Adventure. Now, like any Pokémon spin-off, it has to make a whole story around the basic concept of the game, right? You assume the role of an amateur typist and you join in-game characters called Page Down and Quinton Werty. Yes, those are their names. In researching Pokémon across various different areas. You research them by catching them in special Pokeballs that you only throw when you've successfully typed the name of said Pokémon. And as you progress through the game, you make your way across a kind of virtual keyboard which indicates each of the different areas that you're visiting. And they've gone ahead and used some really strange names for the areas depending on the key it represents. The game itself is pretty linear and it's quite short. You could reach the end of it in like 2 hours. The difficulty starts low where you only need to type like 1 or 2 letters of the Pokemon's name. And it goes up to where you have to type in the full names and, well, in order to stand any chance of getting gold medals in the later levels, you're going to need to start typing those names out before the typing prompt even appears. That means you're really going to have a good general knowledge of Pokemon names in order to succeed here, rather than having a real typing prowess. And that's pretty much it, to be honest. It's a very short game. There's not going to be very much playability unless you really want to get gold on all of the levels and get really good at typing and learning all these Pokemon's names. The graphics aren't all that good either, it's mostly sprites, and it's very linear. Is it something that Mavis Beacon needs to worry about? Not really. But I suppose, it is quite fun for a short jaunt. And, despite Nintendo giving us an American keyboard layout, well, at least the game itself pronounces Z properly. So, are you missing out by not getting this? Probably not. I mean, it's nice to be able to experience this game, and it's really nice having a Nintendo branded keyboard, but beyond the collectible aspects, that's really it. The keyboard doesn't work with any other game on the DS, and besides it working with Pokémon Typing Adventure and you might be able to connect it up to your computer, you've got just really an average Bluetooth keyboard out of this. I mean, it could come in handy in a pinch if you needed one, but I wouldn't say it's a must-buy. So yeah, it's probably not the ending you were expecting, especially for a game which was released in so many different countries but didn't even reach the shores of the States. I'm just telling it as it is. It's an interesting experience for a couple of hours and, the keyboard is in fact a little more useful and functional than you might expect, but after playing it with the game, you're likely not going to use it again. But with that, I'm going to sign off, so thanks very much for watching. Have you tried out Pokémon Typing Adventure before, and have you used the proper keyboard for it? Tell us all your experiences down below. And, while you're down there, please leave a like if you like the video, and there's always that subscribe button if you want to see more. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.